Arise and thrive.
Just imagine that you wake up one morning to a very loud bang on your door, and then you rush downstairs just to open the door, and bingo, the police are standing on your door. With who? The social services. Well, of course, children's social services. Why are they here for? They have come to take your kids away. Why? And I'm sure most people, I've heard many people say, why do they come to my house? Why do they have to interfere in my affairs? Who give them the audacity to come and take my children away? Hello everybody, this is number 2. We're continuing on our video, Stop, Don't Take My Child. All right, we are talking about safeguarding children, and today is a continuation of the video that we did. I think I did the first video. We were talking about the cultural differences, and today we're going to be talking about the legislation. Who actually give the power to the social service to take children away from parents? We are going to be answering that question today. And remember, I said this is something, please, if you haven't watched the first video, please try and watch the first one so that you can continue on this one smoothly. Remember, I said we have, as parents, we've got our own part to play. All right, we need to be educated, we need to be aware, because ignorance is no excuse. We need to be ahead of what are the things that we need to do to make sure we prevent our children from going into social care, or prevent our family unit from breaking apart. So we got our own role to play. So today we continue on video number 2. Now, the second thing that we need to know in order for us to protect our children and preserve our family unit is to understand the power of legislation. Remember, we asked the question, why do social service come to take our children away from us? We need to understand where that power is coming from. Because if we understand it, then we know how to act, we know how to obey, be compliant with that law, so that we can prevent our children being taken away from us. So what is a legislation? A legislation is a law or a set of laws that have been passed by the parliament or the government of a country, and it must be respected by everyone who lives in that country. Yeah, irrespective of where you come from, you must respect the laws of that country. Now, individual countries have their specific legislations, guidance, and principles around children safeguarding. But there are also universal legislation and guidance, which in theory, every country that is a signatory to that legislation must respect that legislation. For example, we have the United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child. This convention actually outlines the basic rights of children. For example, the right of life, the right of health, education, freedom of violence, freedom from abuse and neglect, protection from child labor, and many others. I will actually do a full video on that so that we understand. Remember, I said knowledge is power. The sad thing is that most people or many countries don't respect these principles. And that is why abuse and neglect are seen as normal practices in some countries. And when citizens of these countries migrate to a country like the UK, they are shocked to know that certain practices are unacceptable and can even land you in prison. Yeah, it can even land you in prison. So before we attempt to answer why do social services take children away, let us understand some of these key legislation. We need to understand them. So remember, we said that legislation is passed by the parliament, and it gives power to those that need to implement it. Yeah? If a law is not implemented, like we know any law, just like any rule, I know this is 2025, people are setting new year resolution. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I am going to eat that. If you don't respect those laws or those goals or those things that you've said you would do, that thing that you've set just remains in the air. It hangs in the air. So just like every legislation that is passed in every country, it has to be implemented, or if not, it becomes useless, and the society will usually suffer because of that, right? Because remember, it must have been said for a reason. If it is not implemented, that thing will keep happening, and people are going to be suffering because of that thing. Right. So in the UK, some of the key legislations are, for example, the Children Act 1989. And this act, it defines the responsibility of parents and the duty of local authority. That means the children's social services. It gives them that it defines their responsibility to protect and promote the welfare of children in need. Now, another thing that people have asked me a lot is, what is a child in need, or who is a child in need? A child in need is any child whose fundamental needs are not met by their parents or carers. So the social services will step in to ensure that these needs are met, and in extreme cases they can take the child away to protect and promote their well-being. So please bear that in mind. Okay. The second law or the second legislation that we need to learn is the Children Act 2004. This particular act gives local authorities and other agencies the power to cooperate and to improve the well-being of children. Another one is the Working Together to Safeguard Children statutory guidance. And these guidance, it outlines the rules and responsibility of organizations and individuals working with children. This particular guidance also set clear expectations for interagency cooperation in identifying and responding to kids or to risk that may affect children. Okay. The fourth one that we need to also bear or learn or know about is keeping children safe in education, which is called the KCSIE, right? Some people call it KCC. This particular principle provides statutory guidance for schools and colleges to protect children from harm. So that leads me to another question that somebody asked me one time, a parent asked me one time, that, Peggy, how come these people know what is happening? I went to the GP and before I knew it, the social service were calling me. Or my child went to school and before I know it, they were contacting me. So these are the guidance and principles. They are like a web. All of these organizations, they function like a web, a network that they communicate together. Right. So that is why you see they communicate. If they see something wrong, if the school identifies something wrong with your child, pap, they ring, they contact the social services. Or most schools even have their own safeguarding lead or safeguarding team or whatever in those schools, you know. So that is why they communicate. GP as well. Sometimes if GP spots something, because they are bound, they are bound to report this thing, because if they don't, they may land their own selves into trouble. So it is very, very serious. So by now you can understand that in the UK, the fight to protect children is like a web. The schools communicate with social services, the GP, the police, the community centers. Everyone is talking to each other when there is concern of a child or when there is concern of abuse regarding a child. So these are the legislation that give them the power to take children away. And by the way, we're going to talk about in the next video, they don't just come and then just seize your children away if there is no clear evidence of abuse. Okay, so there must have been a series of something before it comes to that point where they come and take your child away. When they come initially, they want to have a conversation with you. This is why I say it's very important for us to learn so that we can know the type of conversation we are having and be able to speak sensibly and, you know, with confidence, because we know what we're talking about. Okay, so now you know. I think the video, I don't want this video to be too long. Yes, please let us end here and then we will continue in the next video. Summary, I've talked about cultural differences, I've talked about legislation, I've talked about how the community works together to make sure that they protect or they preserve children, you know, from harm and abuse. So now that you know these things, let's continue in the next video because it gets even more interesting. I'll be sharing more information that will help you to make certain adjustments that will prevent your child from being taken away. So I hope you learned something from this video, and please, if you did, like and share. Remember, I said I'm going to be sharing bite-sized videos so that we together can learn, so that we can protect our children. Circumstances happen, things will happen, you know, challenges will happen, you know, but that doesn't make parents. That doesn't make many parents bad parents, you know. So this is why it is very important for us to learn, so that we can educate ourselves, educate our friends and family, you know, so that we can protect our children, because we love our children so dearly and we want them to stay with us. So guys, I will see you in the next video, because there are more juicy things that we're going to be sharing, tips and strategies that will help you in the next video. So thank you so much. I love you, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.